Welcome to NWA Connie Corsos podcast, where we talk all things dogs.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another show. Got a really special guest here, a legendary guest, Mr. Garcia. Most of y'all know him as Schoolboy. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
Man, I'm in it to win it. Another day above ground is always good.
Always. That's what I look forward to every morning, breathing.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. I'm glad you came on, man. You was really easy to get to come on here, so that was nice.
Appreciate it.
Where you from?
I'm from California.
Cali, okay.
In fact, I live in the town I was born in.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, that's what's up. So, Mr. Garcia, you always preface your videos with saying that anything we talking about is just going to be for historical purpose, nothing illegal, and all that stuff. So that's for the audience.
Exactly. Yeah. And you know, it's just, you know, to cover ourselves, but also I can't really talk about anything current because I don't know it. I've been out of it so long. I don't know nothing anyways, you know. Yeah. And then the other thing is my memory's so bad. If somebody told me something, I'd forget it tomorrow anyways. You know?
That's right. Oh, that's right.
I don't retain it that way no more.
Gotcha. So I'm gonna let you tell the audience a little bit about yourself, the type dogs and stuff you're used to. So
okay. Yeah, I started around 1978, you know, when I got it. That's when I really got involved with the breed, you know, after doing research and you know, books and, you know, actually in libraries. We didn't have internet back then. So a lot of it was staffs, you know. And you know, honestly, speaking of the past, the reason I got involved with them was for competition, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, you get when you do that, you read about different bloodlines, so you try different dogs, see which ones you like, you know. So I've had Heinzel dogs, I had Boleo dogs, I had Bully Son dogs, I had Boyles dogs, and I ended up getting the basically the Jeep dogs, you know, or HoneyBunch dogs, if you want to call them. And from there were Jeep, Bully Son, Red Boy crosses. And then I eventually, you know, made my own family of dogs, which were basically Jeep, Red Boy, Rascal, or Eli, if you want to put that. You know, the Bully Son and Rascal, they're Eli dogs, right? Okay. And it just went from there, you know.
Okay. Let me ask you this. I want you to clarify my audience. What, in your mind, what is a dog man?
A dog man, first of all, you got to love the breed, you know, and then the maintenance, whether you a breeder or whether you just have them for legal sports nowadays or whatever you have them, you know, proper care and maintenance is first and foremost.
Mm-hmm.
And that term, you know, dog man is thrown around a lot. I've never really called myself a dog man because it's something that your peers give to you. That's the way I look at it. Somebody calls you a dog man because they recognize your accomplishments, they recognize what you've done for the breed, and they recognize that you're an asset to the breed rather than a detriment. And so it could be a broad spectrum of things, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, things like dog man legend and all that, I just, you know, I don't really use those words for myself because I think it's up to your peers, up to the community, how they view you to call you whatever they want. Sometimes it's not so nice, but that's okay too. That's part of it too. You know?
Right.
So that's how I looked at it. You know.
Yeah.
It's all encompassing. You know, kind of an all around thing. And some dog man don't do everything. You know, I learned early on, especially from Ronald Boyles, you know, is that you have better success if you breed, raise, feed your own dogs because you know them better, you know everything about them. You get to pick and choose which ones you want to breed and which ones you don't, which ones are viable, which ones ain't. So you'll have better all-around success long term if you do that. Some people who aren't breeders, you know, they weren't breeders back in the day. Some people were straight competitors, so they would acquire dogs. Some people weren't competitors. They were into the breeding aspect of it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of like, you know, everything, even the aftercare. I wasn't great at aftercare, but you got to know certain things, you know. something, because, you know, there's accidents or just even deworming and vaccinations and little things that come up, you know, and sometimes major things.
Right.
But I'm not a veterinarian, so if it's something major, you know, I always advise people take them to the vet, you know, because at least you'll have a medical staff there that knows a whole lot more than you do.
Right. So, yeah, you just hit on a lot of points I wanted to ask you about. What is it? What are the key things you got to know in developing your own line?
Well, you have to know the bloodlines, you know, or families of dogs, you know, different breeders. And then you have to understand the characteristics of each. And you have to do a lot of research, you know. And you know, I'm that way about anything that I'm interested in or I love, whether it's dogs, whether it's cattle, horses, firearms, old West stuff, you know, boxing. I'm a big boxing fan, you know.
Yeah.
I always do the research. I want to know the history of it, how it was developed, if it's like a firearm or a dog, where it came from, who had success with it. And then you get into animal husbandry, you know, breeding techniques, you know, breeding methods, which ones give you the types of results you want, because all of them can be used to a certain degree, you know, whether it's inbreeding, line breeding, or outcrossing. You know, I preferred line breeding mostly because it allows you to retain traits and you don't lose a lot of athleticism, you know, mental stability, and you know, so people get into inbreeding too much because they want purity. Well, I've always said this: pure junk is still pure. It's pure junk is still junk. You know what I mean?
Right.
So you have to be careful with that, and there's a place for it. But if you go too heavy into it, you're gonna lose a lot of stuff. Most athletic dogs, most competition dogs in the past were not inbred dogs, right? And the purpose for inbreeding is to retain traits, either family traits or individual traits. Once you've done that, there's no need to inbreed anymore, except for farther down the line if you want to do it again.
Okay.
But if you inbreed, you're going to run into a lot of problems. And you have to be very selective, call hard. And when I say call, I'm speaking in terms of breeding, meaning if you call a dog out of your program, that means you're not going to use it for breeding purposes. It doesn't mean you have to put them to sleep or anything like that. It's just they're not worthy of being bred. Right. And they shouldn't be, because it could hamper your future success, could hurt your bloodline, hurt your dogs, you know. There's just a lot of negative involved in it. So when you get something inbred that's good, or you make something inbred that's good, that's like gold, because you captured all the traits you want. You don't have health problems. You don't have mental and temperament problems. So they're very valuable, right?
Right.
Outcrossing is done usually to make athletes, right? Hybrid vigor, you know, the upper echelon type of dogs. And line breeding, whether it's loose or tight, it allows you to continue with the traits of your dogs, with your family of dogs, without losing too much, because there's crosses here and there, and the individuals are related but not close, not like brother, sister, father, daughter, mother, son, like that, you know.
Right. So when you do that cross, I guess let me start with this one. For prey drive, is prey drive considered a dominant or recessive trait? You know what I mean? Is it hard to maintain?
Well, any trait that we consider, you know, at a high level is hard to maintain, because we expect certain things, you know, and not all of them have it. But if you follow the individuals that have it, then it becomes like normalized in your bloodline.
Okay, you lock it in.
So you're locking it in. So I wouldn't say it's a recessive trait, because it's an ancient trait that's in all predators. Canines are basically predators. So for survival, they have to have that trait: prey drive, killer instinct. But again, that doesn't mean that because a dog has those traits that they're game. for me, the traits, gameness and prey drive or killer instinct, like that, they're finish. We call it finish. They're intermingle. You know, they go together, but they're separate from each other. So a dog that has that prey drive, it doesn't necessarily mean he's game. And a game dog doesn't necessarily mean they have that prey drive or that finishing instinct. So in my case, I like to have both. It's kind of like that argument, do you want a hard-mouthed dog or do you want a game dog, right? And I don't know where it came from, but it makes sense that people would ask that question. My answer is always, I want both. Why do I only have to have one or the other? Why can't I have both? It's possible. I've done it. Others have done it. But when you put limitations like that, then in your mind, you're saying, I want one or the other. I got to have one or the other, or one is better than the other. And it doesn't have to be that way. It shouldn't be that way, right? You should want both. Just like you should want dogs with good air and good balance and intelligence. It can be all inclusive. You're not going to get everything. It's very hard to get a perfect dog. But if you strive for it, you may have, you can get dogs that kind of are all around dogs. They have a little bit of each. Maybe they don't have the greatest air, but they have good air. Maybe they don't have the hardest mouth, but they got good mouth. Right. Maybe their balance isn't perfect, but they're well-rounded dogs with good balance, like that.
Okay. So let me ask you about the cross. So when you're crossing, and you talked about making hybrid vigor dogs, are you taking the extremes of both dogs to cross? Like you getting like, I'm getting the best two I can find, then crossing, or does crossing, even if the dog isn't the best of what it needs to be, if you cross it, does it automatically make a better athlete?
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, for me, anytime you make an outcross, you should produce superior animals. That's the whole purpose of it. So in my opinion, if it doesn't produce superior animals, it didn't work. Right. And there's different ways that outcrossing is used. But if you're talking a straight 50-50, there's two ways to look at it. You're putting them together because one has something the other lacks. The other has something the one lacks. You put them together, you get the best of both. Right. And that's an effective way of looking at it. Let's say, I need something, right? So I need to go get an outcross to add it to my blood to get that something. The best way for me in outcrossing is using two dogs that are not related, but have the same traits. Because if they have the same traits, even though they're not related, when you put them together, because they share those traits, you're going to have a better chance of getting those traits that you want.
Gotcha.
I prefer that type of outcross.
Even phenotypically, you want them to look alike as well?
Not necessarily, but
maybe.
Again, if you have standards for structure, that would be ideal too, right?
Right.
And a lot of bloodlines, even though they're different, they share phenotypes, right? You could say like a Boleo dog and a Finley's Bow dog, right? That would be a cross. They share a lot of traits, not only structurally or physically, but inherent in the way they move, the good balance. Their structure are similar, certain parts of it, meaning that they're like the front ends, right? The front end are straight. You see some dogs where their feet come together, right, at an angle, or they're bowed out, right? Finley Bow dogs and Boleo dogs, their legs come straight down, even with their shoulders, right? Not that their leg is straight, it bends at the elbow like that, but they come straight down rather than in or out. That's what gives them good balance.
Okay.
So that would be a example of outcrossing two dogs that are not related, but they share certain traits.
Gotcha. So this is one I get different answers on. If you're going to buy a dog, no matter what kind of dog, especially I deal with a lot of guardian breeds and things like that. What are you going to trust more, the pedigree or the breeder?
The breeder always. Not just the breeder himself, but it matters who has the dogs and what they do with them, right? For example, my friend in Panama, I went down there. I did a couple of confirmation shows for him. We became good friends. He had a business, a protection business, guard business, right? He had mouths, right? So he bred his own mouths. He had a ton of them. He had a lot of experience with training them. He was originally from Venezuela, and the police in Venezuela used a lot of mouths. At that time, they had about 10,000 mouths in service, and they probably had another 10,000 in training behind them. So that's who, rest in peace, John. That's who I would go to, someone like that, who actually uses them for the function they were bred for, and has a lot of experience and knows them in and out, does the training and all that,
Right.
That's what I would look for. And I would do that with anything across the board,
Right.
Who has them? What do they do with them? Once you acquire a dog, whatever breed it is, and the dog works out for you, that's when the pedigree becomes important. Other than that, the pedigree doesn't matter. And I mean that in this respect. Any great dog that's a great producer, whether you're talking about Art or Boomerang, Boleo, Jeep, HoneyBunch, DirtyMary, right? They produce their share of unworthy dogs. It had to be culled from a breeding program. They weren't good enough. So if you're doing that with top individuals, right?
Right.
And that's standard or should be standard, then the pedigree in that respect didn't matter. It didn't matter they were sons of Jeep or daughters of Jeep. They were culled. But again, if the dog works out, if he represents his bloodline, his family, has the traits you like, you consider him worthy, then that pedigree is very important.
And I don't think a lot of people understand the amount or what goes into culling for real, how many just don't make the cut in any breed.
More than do.
More than do?
More than do, yeah. There's more that don't make the cut than do. And that, again, it's across the board. I use examples and I studied, again, I was into a lot of stuff. We had working cow dogs when I was young, that worked cattle, right? So, I like agriculture, I like farming and livestock, all that. And also horse racing, thoroughbred horse racing and trotters and pigeon racing and bullfighting and all this stuff that would be considered either sporting animals or working animals, right? So that's across the board. In fact, the breeding methods and techniques, a lot of them are used by different people in different things, the ones I just named, but the techniques are the same, the methods are the same, because that's one thing that never changes is breeding.
Very true.
The concepts of breeding never change. The concepts of conditioning never change.
Yeah.
There's advancement, there's evolution, there's different products and better this and worse that and all that. But the concepts themselves don't change. So you could conceivably take a pigeon racer and look at the way he bred his birds. You could do the same thing with your dogs and you'll get the same types of result.
Right. Gotcha. Let me ask you on this here. So you was talking about conditioning, and if you're going to condition a performance dog, what are the top things you need to know?
I got to have a good dog first. I have to have the right individual. And then I would have to study the dog. If it's mine, I already know everything I need to know about it. But let's say I was getting an outside individual. I have to study it, see how it moves, see how it works, look at its digestion, its intake of food and how long it takes them to empty out, and check their intelligence, all this stuff that you would do if you're buying a new car. You should know everything about it, what's inside, what kind of engine it has, drivetrain, what are the amenities, all this stuff. How did they build it? What's it made out of? Is it carbon fiber? Is it aluminum? Is it plastic, fiberglass, whatever? So you basically do the same thing with a dog. You got to know everything about it. What are the family traits? What is it known for? How is it supposed to act and move and work. And for me, they have to have a good work ethic. I've used dogs that didn't. I don't like them. I prefer not to. And I wouldn't keep one or breed one that didn't have a good work ethic.
Mm-hmm.
So that's part of it too.
Right. So, as far as nutrition, do you need to know how to read a dog food bag? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And again, we learned way back, when you're reading a dog food bag, the first few ingredients are the most important. That's the main. So if it starts off with meat, beef, let's say beef, chicken, fish, whatever it is. But if it has meat byproducts, if it has, bone meal and stuff, it's generally not a good product, right? Dogs thrive on meat and fat mostly. Mm-hmm. And then a little bit of carbs, and then you have vitamins, minerals, and trace elements, right?
Right.
And then it's just a matter of what protein and fat content you want. And all this comes with testing, research, all that.
Right.
So anything in the dogs takes time.
Mm-hmm.
Anything you do with them takes time to learn. Right. And all what I'm talking about is an accumulation of information and experience and knowledge gained over decades. Right. It didn't come right away. No matter what anybody says, no matter what you read, you have to test it and make sure. In the beginning, I wasn't a very good conditioner. Part of it was because I didn't know how to condition dogs, and the other part was I didn't have the nutrition down. Mm-hmm. Once I learned, all that changed, and I could compete with anybody, in my opinion, anyways. And I did as much as I could,
Right. I saw a video of you talking about bringing a dog in the condition out of winter. He might be a little bit heavy.
Right.
Yeah. What kind of explain that again to the audience, what you mean?
Yeah. Well, I like to, depending on where you live, if you live in a very cold area, like in the Northeast US or Canada, where it can be cold, because not all of Canada is cold like that. But if you live in that type of area, they have to have more weight on them during the wintertime to keep warm.
Right.
And even their living conditions are different. So you got to have them heavy. It gets cold where I live, gets down to freezing sometime, but not sub-zero generally, So I would have mine heavier in the wintertime than I did in the summertime. So coming out of the wintertime into the spring, unless it was a dog I was competing with, I kept them at a certain weight, usually 2 to 4 pounds over their weight. Mm-hmm. But coming out of the wintertime, that's when I would start dropping their weight. And most of that means is you just cutting back on the food, because you're giving them extra food during the winter. So you just cut back on it. And we regularly exercise our dogs, so they were always fit, because I looked at them like athletes. I didn't see the benefit of having them lay around and do nothing, have a lot of weight on them. You can have a lot of weight on a dog and still exercise it, and it becomes accustomed to that weight. Just like in the summertime, I had them a little bit thin, sometimes that weight, sometimes even a little below weight, because it gets so hot, it can get up to 110 degrees here.
Yeah.
And they become accustomed to that weight as long as they have the nutrition they need, right? Having them thin like that, it's better because they won't overheat. Mm-hmm. And of course, you got to have fresh water and all that stuff. But, and then, as you come into the fall and summer, you start putting a little bit of weight on.
How do you?
It's not hard. You could add a little bit of fat. You could just give them more kibble. There's different ways to go about it.
Right. I was looking at that cat behind you. I was going to say, watch your back.
that's my boy. Yeah. He knows I'm here, so he come bother me.
Yeah.
I don't have dogs no more, but we got these stray cats that come around.
Oh, okay.
Girls feed them, so they come.
Oh, okay.
In fact, the other day I was sitting around. I was just sitting outside smoking like I always do. We don't smoke inside the house, right? Uh-huh. And this stray looking pit bull comes up to me, He just walks up to me, so I just pet him, took a little video, put it on my group,
uh-huh. And
just, dogs kind of are drawn to me, or I'm drawn to them. Mm-hmm. He was a stranger. It wasn't aggressive, done. He just kind of, hey, what's up? Yeah. And I just pet him like that, and he looked around and took off.
Right.
I've had a lot of different experiences like that.
Guys like you always have some kind of knack for dogs. It's usually when did you first know yours that you had a
probably without knowing it, probably when I was very young, because we always had dogs.
Mm-hmm.
So you get that inherent relationship, understanding of dogs without even knowing that that's what you're doing. Right. And you know, especially with children, if you just put dogs with children, they just act naturally and they treat the dog like part of the group. So they just behave naturally with them. They don't do a lot of thinking, like, you know, what should I do? What does a dog mean? What's this and that? It's more like, you know, come here, let's do this. We're going here. And the dog follows it along, and they understand children. So they get along good, you know?
Yeah.
And it's kind of a natural order of things, as long as the child ain't scared of dogs, you know? In fact, I have a grandson has autism. And we raised a couple of dogs for friends, and he was just a natural with them. He could get them to do all kinds of stuff. He would lead them around by their ear rather than a lead, you know, on a collar. He just grabbed them by the ear and make them walk like that.
Yeah.
He could do just about anything he wanted to. And I think the dogs had some kind of inherent knowledge that he was different, and they treated him that way. They just accepted him and went along with whatever he wanted to do. They just understood, I would say. He could get them to do stuff that I never could with dogs, you know. But that's just that child mind of, let's do this, and the dog understands and he does it, you know, goes along with it.
That's right. Yeah. So when you got deep into the dogs, today you hear a word a lot called mentorship, and I get back in those days, how hard was it to get mentorship? I mean, because people had to trust you.
Right. Very hard.
Very hard.
Nobody gonna teach you anything. Nobody want to give up their secrets, help you, because there is that mistrust. They don't know you. Why would they help you? There could be some ulterior motive why you're trying to get close to me.
Right.
And you know, I didn't like it, but I understood it. Right. Because, you know, I was around a lot of adults, and they behave a certain way, do things a certain way. They teach you a certain way, if you will, you know, because I started working in the fields when I was 8 years old during the summertime picking tomatoes, and you're around nothing but adults. Right. So you kind of, like I said, I didn't like it, but I understood it, you know, and you know, now it's different. But again, I caution people, if you're going to consider someone a mentor, or you want to get information from someone, you have to do research on the person, on their dogs. You have to network with others, get testimony, right? You can't just believe what anybody says. I say that about myself. Don't just take what I say as gospel. Test it, check it, see if what I'm telling you helps. If it doesn't, that's okay, because not everything is for everyone. But don't just believe me because I have a name like Schoolboy, or I'm online and I do all this stuff, right? But in my case, I have a lot of experience. I have that experience from the past in breeding, conditioning, feed, nutrition, upkeep, all that. But as you progress through the breed, there's a lot of other factors and a lot of other things that you can get involved with. And I felt it was important for me to do that, including hog hunting, confirmation show judge, traveling to different countries, different states, judging weight pool, giving seminars in English and Spanish in Mexico and a couple of different places in the United States, right?
Yeah.
You can't speak on those things unless you've done them.
Right.
You can give your opinion, and you could even say, well, I saw this and I saw that. But there's too many times that people are talking like they have that experience, or they know something, or they came up with that. No, I tell people, no, that ain't original from you. I read that article that you're pulling it from.
Yeah.
Give the credit to the article. Say, I read this somewhere and this is what it says, rather than saying, this is how it is. You didn't do that. That's not you. Yeah. You've never gone through that. So it's kind of a two-way street, you know. We don't know everything, but you have to have experience when you speak on certain subjects, you know.
Mm-hmm.
That's my opinion anyways, again, but it's an educated opinion, you know. I haven't done everything. I'm not the best at anything, but I've done a lot of stuff that most people, they haven't, you know.
They probably would never do. So
probably won't, you know, but again, you know, if you love the breed, you want to do as much as you can. You want to learn as much as you can. And if you want to be a mentor, you know, you got to have some kind of, you know, master's or PhD or something, whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So that people will trust you, you know, and then they can check everything I say. People can check on it. A lot of my stuff is in the magazines, a lot of articles I wrote, a lot of people that I know, old guys that were around back then that I either met, knew, competed against, or saw them compete. And the same with confirmation show judges. I've judged with some of the top names in the breed community, you know, and for different organizations. So I think all that is important, you know.
What's the difference in between a show dog and a working dog? Is there any difference?
If a show dog is that's all what he does.
Okay.
And a working dog, that's all they do. That's the difference.
Right.
They haven't crossed over. But there's a lot of show dogs that were working dogs and a lot of working dogs that were show dogs. Talking champions, grand champions. They did both, you know.
Right.
And
that's what I've been hearing a lot of it's starting to cross.
Yeah. Even people that are, you know, some people, they're kind of hard-headed, you know, and they're against, some older guys are against confirmation shows, you know. They don't see it as necessary for the breed. Well, my answer to them is, if that's not part of the breed, then why did Bert Soros, Ozzie Stevens, T.L. Williams, you know, DNK, Gary Hammonds, all these guys that we hear about and read about and had dogs from or knew, why are they doing? Why were they confirmation show judges? They must have thought it was important.
It's important, yeah.
So it's not, you can't negate anything that puts the breed in a positive light, or people that are trying to showcase the breed in a certain way for the public to see in a positive light. I don't knock none of it. Like I said, I had to go out and do it. But if I'm not a confirmation show judge, or I haven't entered my dogs in confirmation, what can I speak on?
That's
just
true.
An opinion, whether I like it or don't like it. That's nothing.
Yeah, it's like knowing a mechanic not knowing certain parts of a car. It don't make sense. I mean, because I hear that a lot in my comment section. And how can you be a breeder? You don't even know the parts of a dog. You don't know how a dog is put together. So I think
that's a good point. And I've used that as an example. I worked with a person who had a degree in, it was mechanics or something like that. It was all in theory. He never put his hands on nothing. He never built nothing. And he would tell you that, you know, my degree is all in theory. I've never built an engine. I've never changed pistons. I've never constructed a building, nothing. Right. So he had the theory, and a lot of people in the dog, they have the theory, but if you don't put it to use, if you don't have hands on with it, you really don't know anything about it.
Right. Right. Yeah. So yeah, that's always something I ask my guests, because I have a lot, being that you said that a lot of people are starting to cross over a little bit. I had a young man make a really good point one time when it came to, I forget who it was, but he had some working dogs. It might have been Corso. It might have been a guy that did presses, I know. But he said when a dog is in a show, he is working. He said, do you know what is all involved being around those other dogs, those other scents, sounds, new environment, keep showing, it's really the ultimate show of nerves. You know what I mean?
Good point. I agree.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons back in the day we took our dogs to show. You're not only traveling with the dog, so you get accustomed for the dog being inside a vehicle, moving vehicle, which a lot of them ain't. That's why they throw up. You know, they've never been in a car. And then you see them in an environment where there's other dogs there, and you get to check their behavior. Some are skittish and scared. They've never been outside the yard, and they behave accordingly when they're around other dogs. Some are very confident. But if you keep doing that over and over, you'll see a change in your dog for the better. So yeah, they are worth. That's a good point. Whoever made that point, you know, that's part of it too. You have to socialize these animals, and any animal that's close to human beings, as a dog is, which is, you know, first a wild animal that we domesticated. It's probably the closest one that we've had. You know, includes horses and cattle and whatever it is that we domesticated, right? The dog is number one. So they're social animals, you know, because they're so much involved with humans, right?
Right.
So that's a big part of it too. The dog should be accustomed to any environment, any strangers, any, you know, riding in vehicles, going to the mountains, walking through town. You know, a lot of the stuff you can't do with certain dogs, you know. But at least get them out and about, take them different places. Some dogs, you know, because they're secluded on their yard, certain surfaces they were afraid of. They wouldn't walk on grass or tile or cement because they weren't used to it. And they're 2-3 years old, and now they react negatively because it's something they're not accustomed to. That's a tragedy. That's a shame.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, you see those people try to get people to fix those dogs. What is the success rate of people who done kind of lock those dogs off too far away from society? You know what I mean? Yeah,
it's, well, you know, I'm not a dog whisperer, you know. Someone who's a trainer that specializes in that would give a better answer. It can be done, but with some dogs, they're ruined, and there's nothing you can do about it, right? But the younger they are, then they have a better chance of changing that behavior.
Right.
So in my case, when we had dogs like that, or I got dogs from other people that were like that, pups, there was never one that I couldn't change. And it basically just be given them to the kids and my wife. Mess with them. They're scared or whatever it is, you know. Adults, there were 2 or 3 adults that I couldn't change. They were so timid, skittish, and scared.
Oh yeah.
They wouldn't even walk on a lead, you know. You walk up to them, they run away like you're trying to kill them.
Oh yeah. You can't do that.
So some of those I couldn't do it. Maybe somebody else could. They're better than me, but I never.
Right. How often? What was your worming schedule like? I hear different things on this. And what did you use?
Well, you know, with that, the schedules and all that, you got to look at it from the manufacturer's point of view. So they're going to give you a schedule, and part of it is related to their sales. They want to sell more product. So I never saw the benefit of deworming your dogs all the time. You know, it's a lot of chemicals. You know, they're going to build resistance to it. You know, I wouldn't worm my dogs once a month. Yeah. The first thing would be to determine if they have worms or not. So I was into preventative maintenance more than the knowledge of veterinary. You know, which, you know, if I keep their environment clean and parasite free, I'm going to have less chance of getting worms. But I did have a schedule, which was I used ivermectin once a month. It's a heartworm preventative. And then I used Dronsit and Panicure every 6 months, twice a year. Right. And that was basically it. Unless I suspected of my dog having worms. You can see them if they have worms. But again, if you see worms in your dog's stool, you're way behind, you know.
Right.
So and now, because of new technology and availability of things, you can learn how to check your dog's stool. You can get a microscope and do all that. And it doesn't take formal education. It takes practice and knowledge and testing and timing and all that, you know. But that can be done, you know.
Right. But
to deworm them a lot like that, you know, every month, you know, with those heavy chemicals, I don't see the benefit of it. You know?
It's extreme. And those microscopes will show you what else too? Is it Giardia? What is it? Coccidia or Giardia? The microscope shows
both. Both. If you learn, what the bacteria looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And also now you can buy a unit to check your blood, the blood count of your dogs.
Mm-hmm.
You can check the HCP count. You can check there's two different, the ones I seen, they have two different blood counts you can check.
Right.
Learn how to do that. I know people that do that. Saves a lot of time and money,
Mm-hmm.
if you learn how to use them properly and know how to read what it is you're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
That's the good thing about science. It's always different things that come along.
Yes, sir.
That you can use, to your benefit, save you some money.
Yeah, for sure. That's when you get more than 5 dogs, you better be learning how to take care of them.
Yeah.
It's a must.
I mean, I come from part of my youth was cattle industry. We had a few dairy cattle, but we had, probably 300 head. We didn't, but the company my dad worked for, about 300 head of beef cattle.
Mm-hmm.
You got to learn how to take care of them. You can't call a vet out there every time there's a problem. It's too expensive.
Right.
Even for a rancher or a farmer that has hundreds and thousands of acres, he's got a lot invested in it. So he's looking to cut his costs too. So they learn how to do stuff. For example, every season we'd castrate the young bulls, right? Mm-hmm. So, and then older ones, basically what we did is we rounded them all up. We castrated the ones that need castrating. We dewormed them. We branded them, cut their horns, and if they needed to be branded, we did that too. Mm-hmm. So you do all that yourself, rather than at the very least, you don't have to have someone come out or take all your cattle into a vet, like you would a dog, and have him deworm you just buy the dewormer yourself, do it yourself.
Right.
Same thing with castration. You learn how to castrate. There's a certain way to do it, and then there's a spray you put on with disinfectant and all that,
Right.
So same thing with dogs, just on a lower scale.
Right. You got to know how to do it. Tractor Supplies and these feed stores got to be your best friend.
All that.
Yeah. Let me ask you this: how important is the female to a program?
In my opinion, she's the most important. And just looking at it practically, she can't have as many pups as a male can, right? At the most, you can breed her twice a year. Or a male, conceivably, you could breed them 100 times a year if you wanted to, if you had enough females, right? Mm-hmm. The other practical part is she's the one carrying the pups. She's their first influence. Her health matters more than the male does in terms of whelping the pups, whether they come out healthy and well structured and all that. Her own self, the type of mother she is, what she can teach her pups, what influence she has on them. Her health in terms of, you don't have sick pups and you don't have weak pups and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. So in my opinion, she's more important than a male. Not only that, is if you have a female that's a foundation for your bloodline, for your family of dogs, that's like gold, because they're hard to get. But once you have one, you're set. You're set for a long time. Because basically you can find males anywhere. Not that the male isn't important, you need him. He's 50% of the breeding. And he is as important in your program as any other dog, male or female. But again, because of those reasons, to me, the female is more important.
If you saw a female that wasn't a good mother, how would you deal with that?
Wouldn't keep her. Wouldn't breed her. Yeah. People, one thing people do, and this is something I've mentioned before too, is they make excuses or they take exceptions in pit bulls that other industries wouldn't and don't. Mm-hmm. Hound dog people, catch dog people, livestock people, hunting dog people, racing pigeon people, game fowl people, they wouldn't do the stuff pit bull people do. Mm-hmm. They just wouldn't. It doesn't make any sense, not only economically, but the overall production rate and quality of your individuals. But people make excuses for pit bulls because it's a pit bull. That's the only reason. There's no science. There's no genetic information that tells you if I breed a cur or a cold dog that I'm going to get exactly the same as I would if I didn't.
Right.
That just looking at it on its own like that don't make no sense.
Yeah.
Why would you accept a major flaw like that?
Yeah,
Because of the pit bull? Because of the pedigree says this? Because it's bred a certain way? That's why I mentioned culling dogs off a Jeep and like that. That pedigree did not matter. It didn't matter if it was a son of Jeep. It wasn't worthy. It wasn't kept. So why 30 years later are people making more exceptions because they have a dog that's 30 times Jeep in his pedigree that they didn't do in the past when it was closer to Jeep himself? That it just ain't done anywhere else. You know, if you talk to hound dog men, they'll tell you if a dog don't hunt, I ain't keeping it.
Yeah.
No good.
Yeah, people try to go off names, just like in the store, you know, trying to sell name brand products, and that ain't all.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you something about that. My sister-in-law worked for a company that manufactured lingerie for women, right? Same lingerie. On one line, it said Walmart. On the other line, it said Macy's. On the other line, it said Victoria's Secret.
Yeah. Same product.
The name is what generated the value of the product. Wasn't no different. And that's what people kind of do with dogs. You know?
Yeah.
Oh, that's Jeep. And I bring up Jeep because everybody knows I'm a Jeep guy. So it didn't matter if it was Jeep.
Right.
We still did what we felt was right.
Right.
You know, and that could be said with any bloodline.
Yeah.
And the examples of that, there's two examples. One example is every bloodline has produced good dogs.
Right.
Right. The opposite is every bloodline has produced junk. So it's up to the individual to decide what's good and what's not. But when people make these bold statements or blanket statements about pedigree and a dog's name and a famous dog, they're missing the whole point. And then they don't have what they call receipts to back up what they're saying. It's just speculation. It's just excuses. They have nothing to back up, you know. There's no science done on it. There's no data. The data comes from individual breeders. So if I want to be a great breeder, I'm going to look at the ones in all different genres and different breeds and different animals. I'm going to look at the top guys and see what they did. And then I'm gonna copy it.
That's right.
Because that's what everybody does. Nobody comes up with their own stuff. You ain't making no cross that hasn't been done before.
That's right.
You ain't breeding something that hasn't been bred before.
That's right.
The only difference is the people's name, the breeder's name changed, and the dog's name changed. But the successful breedings, methods, techniques have already been done. That's why they keep being repeated, because they work. That's why. That's standard. You know?
Yeah. That's why it's important to start off good with the breeder. You know what I'm saying? And more in the pedigree. I've learned more talking to breeders than a pedigree could ever show me, because pedigree don't tell you everything. It don't tell you everything. Traits and things like that. You know, it don't tell you.
None of that. Yeah. And the sad part of that is then people talking about the pedigrees, they don't know nothing about the dogs in the pedigree anyways. They don't even know their own dogs. And they don't know the parents of their dogs or the grandparents. They just looking at the name.
That's it.
Oh, here's this and that. You know, they ask me all the time, what do you think of this pedigree? I don't know. I'm not familiar with those dogs up close. They come from good dogs, but you should be telling me, not asking me. You should be telling me the traits of your dogs and the dog you have in front of you and the parents and grandparents. Obviously, you didn't do your research. You don't know nothing about them. That's why you're asking me. Well, how am I supposed to tell you? If you don't know, I don't know.
Right.
But that's just kind of the way some people are, you know.
Yeah.
Sometimes people get offended by what I say, but it's backed by experience, you know, and common sense, really, you know. It's like, you know, what do you think of my kid? Shit, I don't know. How can I tell you? You know, people ask me, Are you a good father? I don't know. Ask my kid. Don't ask me. What the hell you think I'm going to say? Really? That
Yeah.
I'm a piece of shit. You know, I'm no good. You know, I'm mean. And ask my kids. They'll tell you. You know, I have no problem with that. You know.
Right. So I'm getting close. Go ahead. Finish.
No, I was going to say it's just kind of the same with the dogs. You know.
Yeah.
Try to learn as much as you can about them. You know. Talk to these breeders. Find out. You know, like you said, family traits, lineage traits, bloodlines, temperament, behavior, all that. Much as you can.
Yes, sir. I got a few more minutes with you, so I'm gonna ask you, who were the most influential breeders on you coming up?
Yeah, I would say in the dogs, I would say probably Ronald Boyles, you know, and then maybe Steve Dunleavy. You know, those two kind of stand out, you know, and then I took information from other people, you know, game fowl people like Frank Shy and Thomas W. Murphy, horse people like Woody Stevens, and I forgot the breeder. He's a famous breeder in Italy, horse breeder.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. You know, with every, you know, sport or work, whatever it is, there's guys that are at the top or considered at the top, you know, and that's who even if I just learned by reading or talking to them, you know. But with the dogs, you know, I got a lot of information from Ronald Boyles, and I copied or borrowed, however you want to say it, or stole a lot of what he said and did because it made sense to me. And once I tested what he said, most of it worked. Some of it didn't, but most of it did. You know.
Gotcha. This last question for you. Name me your top 3 to 5 dogs you ever met, if they're yours or not, that you were just so impressed with. Yeah,
my favorites were of my own were probably Big Red, Mr. Rowdy, Sissy, and Lucy. You know, other dogs that, you know, like my favorite dog of all time was Grand Champion Art. You know, of course, Red Boy, Jeep, HoneyBunch. With females, my favorite 3 females in history would be Black Widow, HoneyBunch, and DirtyMary. You know, there's so many of them, and I've seen so many dogs, and I met so many people. Sometimes it's hard to pinpoint. You know, you like certain dogs for certain reasons. You know, like Art, I like him because he was a grand champion. He was a great producer. You know, a good athlete. A well-mannered dog. You know, he wasn't human aggressive, and he wasn't a hard keeper. Stuff like that, you know.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. All right, man. Well, I appreciate you coming. I learned a lot from you today, and I'm gonna be begging you to come back.
Just ask. You know, I'll make myself available.
Okay.
Thanks for having me on.
All right. Well, let me tell them something before you go. You guys find Schoolboy on YouTube. He got a lot of content you can learn from over there. Anything else you would like to tell the audience, Schoolboy, before we go?
Yeah, if anybody's interested in my books, my t-shirts, sticks, old Sporting Dog Journal reprints, you can get a hold of me on Facebook Messenger or my email, richardjschoolboy60@gmail.com, or on Instagram. And always, you know, my channel's on YouTube. I have a dog registry, ICBR. Everything's done in-house, so just contact me there. And, you know, if you ask questions, I always try and answer every question I can. You know, I think it's important to give that feedback. If somebody spend the time to ask you something, you should at least have the decency to answer. That's the way I look at it. That's the way I was raised.
Yeah. Well, we sure appreciate you doing it for us today.
Well, thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right, my brother. We'll talk.
We'll talk soon, brother. Take care.
All right, you too. Bye.
Bye.
And that wraps up another episode of NWA Connie Corsos. Thank you for being a part of our Connie Corso community. Remember, you can stay connected with us beyond the podcast. Find us on all major media platforms by searching for NWA Connie Corsos. Whether it's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or YouTube. Just hit that follow button to join the conversation and get the latest updates. If you have a burning question or want to apply to be a guest on our show, we'd love to hear from you. simply shoot us an email at nwaconniecorsos@gmail.com. And if you're a business interested in becoming a sponsor, reach out to us at the same email address. For more resources, exclusive content, and links to all our social media profiles, visit our website at nwaconniecorsos.com. It's your go-to destination for everything dogs. Thank you once again for tuning in, and we can't wait to bring you more exciting episodes where we explore the fascinating world of dogs.